Alright, hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about learning how to let go of trying to control the things we don't have control over so that we can control the things that we do have control over. Because this is one of the biggest things that's going to help make us feel actually empowered in life. Alright, so learning to discern and differentiate between those things that are outside of our control, what we can't do anything about right now, and learning how to let that stuff go so that we can refocus on the things we do have control over. We can refocus on the things that are working. We can refocus on the things that we do have the power to shift and change if we need to. And how making this shift is going to make us feel so much better in life, and how it actually will help us decrease the amount of time we're spending projecting ourselves into the future, projecting ourselves into the past, and how it can change the way that we interact with our reality, like I say. And this is actually one of those things that can really help us get out of that state of feeling like we don't have any power and we don't have any control and everything is just outside of us and we need someone else or something else to change before we can change. And it's also really important for, like I say, finding the empowerment that we do have. And I feel like, again, it's really important for creating that sense of peace, because when we are living from a place where we are so desperately trying to be in control of things we are not in control of, it sucks. Like, it's just really a painful way to live, and shifting into this mindset can be a lot better. Okay, so I want to start by saying that I am speaking to you from a place of being one of those people who, on the surface, like if you were to read the story of my life, you would probably assume that I am one of those people who have very little control. There are a lot of things about my life that were circumstantially the way that they were, and that I didn't choose, that had a really big impact on me, okay? And this is one of those things that I think needs to be acknowledged and validated in the world in general. So with your situation, we need to understand, first and foremost, that when the self-help, spirituality, personal growth, whatever, world tells you that your life is your choice, that everything about your life is simply the accumulation of your choices. You are where you are because of what you have done. And if you just make the right choices from here on out, you can perfect your life. What we need to recognize and realize is that that is generally just not true. And there is a range and a spectrum for how true that is for each individual. Okay? There is a range and a spectrum for how true that actually is based on the individual. Okay? So if you were someone who grew up with emotionally, spiritually, physically supportive caregivers, you had a relative degree of access. So you had education, you had, your needs, generally speaking, were met, you felt safe, generally speaking, you are able-bodied, you are neurotypical, or you are, in control of your neurofacets. That's your baseline. That's what you're given. The amount of and you are occupying an identity that society approves of. If you are walking around in that situation, that's your life kind of map. That's your bottom line blueprint. The choices that you're going to make in your life and the amount of control you are going to have over the circumstances and the outcomes that you're going to experience are going to be astronomically greater than someone who was born into a situation where they didn't have a secure connection, where they were in poverty, where they are chronically ill, where they are disabled in some way, where they have a mental disorder or are on the spectrum of some sort, didn't get an education, didn't have access. This is something we need to really look at and understand and consider when we are talking about how much choice and how much control do you have. What is your fundamental blueprint baseline? Because that second person is going to have way less control. Not no control, not none, not life is just out of your control and there's nothing you can do about it now. That's not what I'm saying. But they are going to have far less control than the first person. They are going to have results that happen in their life and circumstances and situations that they are going to have to deal with, messes they are going to have to clean up that they did not make. They are going to have challenges and struggles. The effect of their choices is going to be shorter range for that second person versus the first person. And if we are not willing and able to recognize this, we are forever going to be in a state of victim blaming and or self-blame and or where we have these people who are in the self-help, spirituality, personal growth world just constantly talking about how everyone just has the same, 24 hours in the day. Everyone can make all the same good choices, and if you're not doing well, you're just shitty. That narrative negates reality on so many levels that we need to really deeply question that narrative. Okay? So again, if you are coming from a history and a background of access, wealth, privilege, support, love, all of these kind of generational wealth things, and you have all of your faculties, generally speaking, the length that your choices are going to go is going to be very far. The amount of mess in your life that you are going to have to clean up before you can start receiving and perceiving good results is going to be so much smaller. The distance between yourself and these really awesome things that you want to achieve and that you want to experience is going to be much shorter than the distance of the second person, than the messes of the second person. Okay? This is just a reality that we need to face. Learning to understand where our control is means first making an assessment of where we're starting and how much control we actually have. Okay, so if you experienced a whole bunch of adverse experiences in your childhood and you were not loved by your caregivers, you were not safe, you were made to feel like you were a burden or like you were a problem, you learned that there are bad parts of you that you cannot accept and you have to reject and deny, and you live with a lot of self-hate, you live with a lot of shame, you live with a lot of blame, you're walking through life feeling like you don't deserve to be here. You have imprints in your mental state, in your actions, in the ways that you interact with the world that are going to be naturally, in response to that, unhealthy. Right? Not because you're choosing, not because you did something wrong, not because you want to hurt yourself or you're not loving yourself enough, but because that was the blueprint you were given. Right? There was a mess that was made in your psyche that you didn't make, you didn't choose, and now has become a part of your habits. It's become how you view yourself, how you view the world, how you make choices, the things that you allow yourself to do, the things you don't allow yourself to do, the things that you give yourself permission to be, the things you don't give yourself permission to be. It really forms and shapes your literal, right, the way you see the world, the choices you believe are available to you, the things you think you can do and the things you think you can't, the limits you believe are real, the limits you don't believe are real. All of this is being heavily impacted by choices you did not make. And changing that stuff, shifting that stuff, is a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. Having to clean up that mess to the point where you can start to have self-esteem, to the point where you can start to believe in yourself, to the point where you can start to notice your intuition, make space for your feelings, get clear on what you actually want and what you don't want. And more than that, because what's usually going to be the real situation is there's going to be self-sabotaging behaviors, there's going to be addictions, there's going to be numbing behaviors, there's going to be stimulating behaviors, there's going to be ways that we have unhealthy relationship patterns that we then have to heal before we can start to feel like we're actually in control of our own lives. You see? So we're already having to do a whole bunch of work just to get to neutral, just to get to baseline. And that is a mess you didn't make. That's having a huge effect on your life. And then it's a whole bunch of effort you have to put in to make it so that you can get to a place where you can start to make choices that are positive for yourself without running your programs that you didn't choose and that drive you in a negative, self-destructive direction. You see? You are then going to have to choose to do a whole bunch of work just to get out of debt. Think of it that way. If you're chronically ill or neurodiverse or have a mental illness of some sort, you didn't opt into that. You didn't choose that. That wasn't something you said, great, let's have that. Right? If you were born into it or if it happened to you in your childhood especially, it's not because of choices you made in your adulthood. That's going to heavily impact your capacity in life and the choices you have. It just is. People who are chronically ill physically cannot do the things that able-bodied people can do. People with neurodiversity struggle to carry out normal daily functions. So it's like you're walking around with a weighted vest when everyone else does not have that vest on. It makes everything harder. And these things have impact on your reality. They impact the choices you can make. They impact the choices that are available to you. And they impact how far that choice is going to take you, right? So the chronically ill person who's absolutely meticulous with their diet is still not going to be exceptionally healthy, right? They're going to have to be meticulous and make all these like perfect choices just to not feel like dying. Whereas someone who's able-bodied can do the, 80-20 rule. They can live in moderation. They can have a night out and do what they're going to do, and they can stay up late sometimes, and they can not make perfect choices. They can generally make good choices, and they're going to be thriving. You see, the lengths to which a choice is going to go is heavily impacted by your blueprint. So this is what we need to start to understand. Before we decide how much control we have in life, we need to put ourselves into context. We need to put ourselves into context. What are the things I have in my generational wealth bucket, the things that are going for me? And what are the things that I have that are kind of in the generational debt bucket? Where am I starting? Do I have a whole bunch of trauma from not being supported? Or do I have a pretty good sense of myself and sense of the world and feel pretty great about myself because I was loved and supported? Was I given the opportunity to have an education? Or am I still fighting for that right now? Did I have the opportunity to move up in the world? Or was I constantly facing roadblocks for that? How's my body, right? Am I generally physically well? Or was I handed conditions that I didn't choose that are a very real part of my reality? How's my mental state? We have to take stock, and we have to recognize that if we have a whole bunch of trauma, if we have illness, if we have neurodiversity, if we have lack of access as our blueprint, we should not be expecting ourselves to be getting the same results from our choices as people who don't have those things. Okay, so that's the first most important thing we all need to do, is we need to stop shaming and blaming and guilting ourselves. We need to stop listening to the self-help, spirituality, and personal growth teachers that shame, blame, and guilt. And say, if you have bad results, it's your fault. If you're not thriving, it's because you're doing something wrong. You are failing to stand up for yourself. You are failing to have good boundaries. You are failing, you are failing, you are failing. Generally speaking, I don't think people are just making shitty choices for no reason. We're not just sabotaging ourselves for no reason. Right? Sometimes it is that we literally just weren't taught. We weren't taught how to make good choices for ourselves and to support ourselves and to clean up our houses and be responsible. Like maybe our caregivers were a little bit too caring and a little bit too easy on us, and they didn't really teach us life skills. So when we got out into the world, we're a little, ill-equipped. And so we got to learn that stuff. And this is something that's really big, I think, in our society, is that we do have a lot of kind of full-grown adults who mentally and emotionally are still kind of children. And so there's that element of it that I do think needs to be addressed. And that's not trauma. That's not a huge big deal. Like these kind of life skills of like paying your rent and getting a job and being able to just, steadily go to work and be disciplined in some areas and have a workout routine and be, generally speaking, on top of your nutrition to just have like a balanced life. I also want to validate that very few of us are taught that. Like, we're just not taught those skills. And so, like I say, there are a lot of adults who enter into their adulthood and don't have these skills. Like, I remember when I first moved out, I had to teach myself all this stuff, right? Like, it was just, I was kind of thrown out into the deep end, and you all of a sudden have to figure out taxes, and you have to figure out rent, and you have to figure out paying the hydro, and you have to figure out laundry, and you have to figure out budgeting, and you have to figure out time management. And it's a lot. It is a lot to be an adult. And I think that in our world today, generally speaking, like I say, I think a lot of people just aren't taught life skills. And it makes it so that we enter into the world, we enter into the adult reality, and our lives just feel really hard and chaotic and overwhelming, because establishing a baseline is really hard because we don't have those foundational skills. I wish that in school we were actually taught like basic life stuff. It would be so much better if the school system taught you how to do your laundry, taught you how to pay your taxes, taught you how to create a meal plan and budget and, home ec stuff. It, especially for men. Like, we would be living in a completely different society right now if all people had access to just basic life skill education. So I feel like that's number one. We all need to eventually at some point slow down and learn basic life skills. And I think a lot of us would find that the chaos in our lives decreases significantly when we just get some basic stuff under our belt. Like, we don't need to figure out our purpose. We don't need to figure out our highest selves. We don't need to do all this inner work. Some of us really just need to learn how to do the dishes, how to budget, how to have the laundry done. And this is something that I feel like in my life, as someone who was born with a lot of, I would say, generational debt, having those life skills, having those foundations of just having an orderly lifestyle gave me a huge leg up. So I think that that's step number 2 that I want to offer. So number 1 is take stock of where you're coming from. What's your blueprint? What's your foundation? Look at where you're starting so that you can stop shaming, blaming, and guilting yourself and believing there's something wrong with you. If everyone else does the 80-20 rule and is astronomically healthy and you're being so meticulous and your health is still falling apart, right? We need to stop blaming ourselves for where we're starting, because it's not your fault for where you're starting. You didn't choose where you're starting. None of us chose our childhoods. None of us chose our bodies. None of us chose our brains. None of us chose the culture we were born into and what it taught us. None of us chose the education system we got and the indoctrination we got as children. None of us chose to be indoctrinated into a religion or something like this that had a really negative or really positive effect on us. That was all luck of the draw or karma or whatever you want to believe it was. But it had a major impact on you, and it's either a mess you now have to clean up that you didn't make, or it's an inheritance that has made it so that your choices are going to go a lot farther than the people who have debt. Okay? That's the first part. Second part is, before we get into all the higher healing, purpose, living your best life stuff. I really think that so many of us need to slow down and just learn basic life management skills. Before we start to take over the what do I have control over, we need to learn basic life management skills. And I know that sounds so boring, and it sounds so unspiritual, and it sounds so unimportant. But I promise you, everything is going to get a lot less overwhelming when you have basic life management skills. When you can, generally speaking, have a routine in your days, weeks, and months where you have life relatively taken care of, the life maintenance stuff. I talk about this a lot in my mystery school course. The life maintenance stuff, the stuff we all have to do every day. We have to feed ourselves. We have to take care of our home environment. We have to take care of our finances. We have to clean our clothes. We have to just these things that need to get done on a daily and weekly basis to have relative peace. That is number 2. Learn basic life skills. If you feel out of control in your life, if you feel totally like you have chaos, start with the basics. Start with, do you have a budget? Do you know how much money you're bringing in and how much money is going out? And do you have a relative plan for that? Are you able to get your laundry done every week? Do you have a relative cleaning schedule for your home so that you can have a safe environment to exist in? Yeah? Are you able to reasonably feed yourself? A reasonable diet based on what is available to you. Just these basic life things. And we say basic, but to me it's just like when you don't have these foundations, everything else is just going to be so much harder. Laughs and ADHD. Okay, right? My husband is super ADHD. And I am the opposite. I am autism, right? So I thrive on routine and structure and order. And so the basic life skill stuff, I do really well with that. And he obviously struggles a lot more. But that doesn't mean he's not capable. Okay? So that's part of the taking stock of where am I starting and understanding that, yeah, his choice to take care of basic life skills is harder than my choice to take care of basic life skills simply because of the way our brains work. Oh yeah, got the deluxe package. Right? But what I will say is that as humans, we thrive on routine. When he was able to get into a routine and it started to become his new normal to just do these things, he's perfectly capable, just like everybody else. It just took longer and more discipline for him to get into that routine. Okay? But I feel like he's sitting here right now. Bub, Marcus, did your life get better when you learned basic life management skills and how to have just like a little routine on keeping yourself going? Like, to not just have chaos all day. Yes, of course, is what
being more organized is helpful for life.
Being more organized is helpful for life, exactly, right? So his brain prefers chaos. But taking the time to get disciplined enough to just take care of your basic stuff. And again, I understand. Okay? When you have kids, when you have to work 3 or 4 jobs, when you're underprivileged, when you're sick and chronically ill, again, no one is saying that it's not going to be harder for you to do that. I am not saying just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and freaking figure it out. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is when we are talking about making our lives as good for ourselves as we can, by taking the control that we have, all of us have some control over our basic life stuff. We might not have full control over it. We might not be able to be fully on top of it. We might go through flare-ups or times where we're really busy with work or things are super overwhelming with the kids and some things fall through the cracks. And we have to have compassion for ourselves about that. We have grace for ourselves about that. We don't look at this as like a new bar to try to reach of perfectionism. We're not doing it for other people. We're not doing it for how it looks. It's not about having a perfectly clean home and proving that you can do these things because, like, look how good I am. That's not what it's about. It's about creating a structure for yourself that's supportive for you so you have less chaos and noise in your life so that you can feel more in control and that you can have more stability without needing the world to change. Okay, so it's not about performance. It's not about doing good. It's not about that. We all have our areas of weakness or where things fall through the cracks sometimes. It's about taking control of the things we can that create less chaos and more order and structure so that we feel less out of control. So taking care of some basic fundamental life skills, as boring and non-spiritual and non-exciting as that might sound, is crucial life-changing stuff. Okay? Basic life management to the degree that you're not turning it into a neurosis, you're not turning it into a new bar to reach, you're not making it about being good and bad, but you're recognizing that it's about giving yourself a foundation of stability so that you're not feeling like your life is just constant nails on a chalkboard chaos. It's incredibly important. Okay, so that's number 2. Don't try and control the world around you. Don't try to be perfect. Don't try and fix some of the things that you don't have control over right now. When people are coming to me and they are like way deep in their stuff and their life is a mess, and they're like, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't know what my intuition is telling me, I don't know. I'm like, we're not at that yet. That's not the level that we need to be working on. Right? We have too much chaos down here in the everyday that we can work on the spiritual, emotional stuff all we want. And it's just going to keep feeling overwhelming and like we don't have a choice and like everything's falling apart. Because our life is in general chaos. Alright? So, really, basic life skills. As much as you can. Create less clutter in your day-to-day, everyday existence. And it makes so much more room for you to find the control that you have in these greater, bigger, more existential areas of your life. Okay, so that's number 2. Now number 3. is to first realize that all of your power is in this moment right now. So when we are in a state of worrying about the future, and we are trying to figure out how to get from where we are to where we want to go by trying to figure out all the steps. When we are in a state of like, how am I going to heal my body? How am I going to get myself out of this mess? How am I going to find my dream career? How am I going to get myself all the way out of debt and into having savings? How am I going to, fix my whole life? What's the whole road going to look like? I want to be living remotely. I want to be healthier. I want to be living my purpose. I want to have a job, like all of these kind of bigger things. A lot of us get really stuck because we're trying to figure out the whole path before we go. And we're getting caught up on, well, what if this happens, and what if that happens, and what if this happens, and what if that happens? And we're thinking about all these future hypotheticals that are not happening right now, that we have no control over right now, and therefore we are completely blinding ourselves to the things we do have power over right now, the steps we could be taking right now, and we're stuck on things that may or may not ever happen. Like we're literally living in a fantasy world, and then we're wondering why we feel out of control. Well, it's because you're not interacting with real reality. Okay? So like one of the biggest things that I remind my clients of, like so many, this is what we work on session after session after session, which is I totally hear and I validate your anxieties, your fears about what might happen, the future, how things might work out, how things might fall apart, the trying to figure out the whole thing. We validate that stuff, right? We're kind to that part of ourselves. We're not trying to reject it or get rid of it or deny it or make it wrong or bad, because it's not. But then we have to say, okay, is that actually happening right now? Is that actually happening right now? So whatever you're worrying about, when you're in a state of feeling stuck and like you're out of control in life and you don't know how to move forward, how much of your brain space is being taken up right now by things that are hypothetical, that might happen, that could happen, or that did happen, but are not happening right now? Because that's where you're losing the plot. Second step. Is there something you can actually do in this moment to prepare for a future event that is likely to happen? Okay? So again, being present doesn't mean now I never plan for the future, now I never, believe the future is coming and that I should do something about it. Of course, right? We buy groceries. We go to the store to buy groceries, not for right now, but for the rest of the week. That's a intelligent thing to do. But we do it with a plan, and we do it with the thing I have control over right now is that I'm at the grocery store and I have a plan for what I want to eat this week, and so I can buy the food right now. I can't make the food at the grocery store. I can't eat the food at the grocery store. You shouldn't be, at least until you pay for it. But I can buy it right now. So that is where we say, okay, Are there future things that are pretty much guaranteed they're going to happen? Like, I'm gonna need to retire one day, or I'm gonna want food later, or like these things that we know are inevitable. These are the things we can say, okay, so now what control do I have in this moment that can set up my future self? Right? For instance, so again, when we work out, you're not necessarily working out for your health immediately right now today. We work out for our future selves, for our bone density for when we're older, for our muscles that protect our bones for when we're older. We work out for our heart and for our brains, and because it's good for us long term. We save money a little bit every month if we can, right here, right now, for the future. But you see, we're focusing on the things we have control over right now. When we start to get into what if this happens, what if that happens, what if this happens, what if that happens, and we're not asking ourselves, okay, do I have any control over that? That's the question we want to start to ask ourselves. What control do I have over that in this moment? And if the answer is none, then that's something we need to say, okay, I can't worry about that right now. That's not relevant to me right now. That's not happening right now. There's nothing I can do necessarily to prepare for it, or I've already done everything that I can do to prepare for it. And that's when we say to ourselves, if and when that thing happens, I will deal with it then. If I get to a point where I lose my job, right? So if we're worrying about losing our job, well, the first thing we have to do is, are there actually any signs that my job is in danger right now? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then we need to recognize that by worrying about that, all we're doing is creating a bunch of stress in our day right now that's taking us away from the power we have today. If there are legitimate signs that we might be losing our job, that's when we can say, okay, well, do I have a resume built up? Or do I have another plan that I want to take? Or are there action steps I can take in my current job to make myself more valuable? Like, are there performance reviews they've given me that I can improve things? Or are there action steps I can take to just be a little bit more focused, or whatever it is, right? Like, we can determine for ourselves, okay, if it does appear that something is coming, what is the power I have right now to prepare for it? And if the answer to that is nothing, I don't have anything, because I don't really even have any signs that it's going to happen, other than my brain telling me it might, then the answer is, I will deal with it when it happens. Or we ask ourselves, okay, what power do I have in this moment to prepare for that? Because that's always a thing that we can ask ourselves. If there's something I'm really afraid of, or something I'm really hoping for and wanting, we take a million steps back to where we are right now, and we say, what can I do in this moment to prepare for that? What steps can I take to walk towards that in the time that I'm actually in the reality I'm actually in? And then this is where we need to learn to accept that progress and getting to where we want to go and building up a good life for ourselves is only ever going to happen in steps. We are never going to see the whole path. There's never going to be a thing that takes us from where we are to where we want to go. Okay? So we need to stop looking for the healing retreat that's going to just miraculously take away all of your childhood trauma and now you're just free of it. It's not going to happen. I mean, be pleasantly surprised if it does, but we need to live in reality and assume that that is not how it's going to be. And then we need to say, okay, what are the steps I can take right here, right now, today to address what needs to be addressed? Slowly, one step at a time, knowing that you will build on it. If you have a goal of what you want to create in your life, you need to understand you are not going to get there today. You don't have control over the whole path. You don't know what the whole path is going to look like, and there's no possible way that you could prepare for the whole path. All you can do is figure out where you are right now and look for your next step. That's it. Take your next step. In the reality you're actually living in right here, right now, what is your next step available? And I want you to understand that this is how you are going to get anywhere you want to go. This is how you take control over your life. You don't try to control the things that are hypothetical, that you have no control over. You don't try to find the whole path. You don't try to figure out how you're going to get from trauma to healed, or from job you hate to life you love today, because you're not going to know that. You're never going to have that whole map and that whole blueprint, and you don't have control over it. What you have control over is the step you're going to take right now. That's where all of your power is. So what are you capable of today? What are you capable of in this moment? And I swear to you, the more you start to recognize and realize that by taking care of your day to day, this is why the learning the simple life maintenance stuff is like training for these higher things. Because when you learn the discipline of just every day showing up for these good habits that set you up to have control over the things you do have control over, to have less chaos in your life, you learn how to do that in the bigger areas of your life. You learn how to say, okay, I want to heal my whatever. I want to achieve this goal. I want to get from where I am to where I want to go. You're going to start to have the mindset, not of how do I figure out this whole thing, and if I can't figure out how I'm going to get from where I am to where I want to be today, I'm just not going to do anything. That's where so many people are stuck. Is they're trying to figure out the whole path, and they're trying to control stuff they have no control over, because it's not happening right now. But if you can say, no, it's just going to be one step at a time, and the path is going to reveal itself to me as I walk it. When you start to recognize that that's reality, that that is how everyone has gotten from where they were to where they want to be, is by taking one step at a time and figuring it out as they went, being present. Taking control over what is present today, what you have control over today, being honest about that, being real about that. So not taking blame, shame, and guilt and saying I should be in control of everything and there's a mess in my life that I didn't make or that I didn't choose, and I don't know how to clean it all up, and it's all affecting me and all this stuff, and it's all my fault. We don't go there. And we don't go, well, I have no power because I can't figure out the whole path. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know what the perfect answer is. I don't know what the best thing to take me out of this horrible situation I'm in is. We can't live in that world either. We have to say, okay, if I'm in a real pit right now, if I feel very out of control, if things are very dark, my next couple steps aren't going to feel like bliss. The things I have control over right now and the steps that are available to me are probably just going to feel hard, and they're not going to take me from where I am to where I want to go. They're going to be steps, slight, small improvements. We have to be okay with slight, small improvements over time. I think that is the biggest mindset shift that we need to make for most of us when we are really struggling, is to accept there isn't going to be a step that you can take right now that's going to take you all the way from where you are to where you want to go. You don't have control over the whole path. You don't have control over what other people are going to do and how they're going to react and respond. You don't have control over society and how it's set up. And you're never going to have control over those things. But that doesn't mean that you don't have some control and that you can't make some things better. And that better is worth it. That's the main bottom line key, is I want you to let yourself believe and understand that any small step you can take right now is going to lead to the next step, is going to lead to the next step, is going to lead to the next step. That if you are just willing to do the next thing, without looking for the perfect answer, without having to know the whole path, without having to know how you're going to fully get there, and without needing a next step that is extremely relieving or extremely feels like really aligned. It's not going to. It's going to feel just that little bit much better. That's it. That's what you're looking for. You're not looking for soul alignment. You're not looking for the answer. You're not looking for the thing. It's not going to be that. You have to just do what's one little step better than what I've got. And then you take the next one after that, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. And right, from day to day and week to week, it will feel like nothing is happening. And then you'll look back a year from now, and you'll realize, holy smokes, I've walked 1,000,000 miles. I'm in a completely different place than I was. You take control over the step you have right now. That is how we take control of our lives. We stop looking to be in control of everything. We stop giving up if we can't figure out the whole path. We stop trying to micromanage all the things that might happen. We come into our present and we say, what is available to me right now? That's it. What is available to me in terms of what I have control over to make things just 1% better for myself today? And we just do that over and over and over and over again. And I promise you, your life will improve significantly. And then you validate the things you don't have control over. Right? I am never going to be able to heal my body to the point where I'm not chronically ill. And that's shitty. And that's a mess I didn't make. But I have taken little steps every day since the day I was 14 to improve things, and my life is astronomically better than it was 20 years ago. Like, you could not pay me to go back to where I was 10 years ago. You couldn't pay me to go back to where I was 5 years ago. And I didn't see the whole path. I didn't have all the answers. When I started at 14, I had no idea what the frick I was doing. But I took one little step, one step at a time, what I had control over at the time. And that empowerment built over time. So that's what I want you to focus on. Where do you have power to take a step in your reality right now? That is your power. And if you just do that over and over and over again, you are taking as much control as you can, and you will have as much positive impact as you can. You heal incrementally. You take little steps. You allow the process to be what the process is. Okay? Stop trying to control the things you can't control. You have no control over the blueprint you were given. But you have choice about what you're going to do with it now. You don't have control over the circumstances you're in right now, but you have choice about what's your next step. You don't have control over the whole path, but you can take one step. Just one step. Learn basic life maintenance so that there isn't constant chaos in the background of your life. And that is training for these bigger life skills. The more you can manage the stuff you need to manage on a daily basis, the more your brain is going to be set up to manage the bigger things. Okay? So I literally was like, okay, I think I only have 30 minutes of talk today. And there we go, it's an hour already. So I will wrap it up there. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or anything like that. I'm always here. Thank you for listening. Come join the Mystery School. Reach out for coaching. We do all that stuff. Or just enjoy the free content. I hope that the free stuff is enough for a lot of people. Because that's my wish, that everyone can just have access to what they need. So hopefully I'm providing some of that. All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. You're good enough. So now, where are you in real reality right now? And what's your one next step? That's all you ever have to do. And if you keep doing that, you're going to build a very good life for yourself. Okay? Okay. Talk to you later.